Hey guys, ALDI here. Today I'm doing a bit of an unboxing and an installation video for a GPS tracker for my motorcycle, so stay tuned. So as a bit of a background to why I've got this and why I'm installing it on my motorcycle is basically someone decided to steal my wife's Toyota Hilux fully loaded with camping gear last week, and yeah, there's no sign of the Toyota Hilux. It's gone, and they've stolen everything, and it was a lot of money. Good thing we've got insurance. But basically it has been a big stuff around for us to try and go through insurance and everything and hopefully get some sort of money back for it and be able to replace the car, not to mention not having the car. So I don't want the same thing to happen with my motorcycle, so I've got this GPS tracker. So if someone does come and steal my bike, I know where they live, where they sleep, and I will get them and I will Right, so it was a great idea to get one of these, I think, and I'm kicking myself that we didn't install one of these earlier on the Hilux. So this model that I've got here is the TK119-3G, which means it uses the 3G network, so it can be used in Australia. You can get really cheap ones on eBay that cost you about $20 to $30 Australian, but you'll find most of them will not have 3G functionality and it'll just be GSM. In other words, 2G, and the 2G network in Australia has been disconnected, so it's useless. Now with these, this is 3G, so it's a little bit future proof, so we'll still be able to use these for quite some time. So I got this one off Banggood because it was cheaper than getting it on eBay, because you find people just relist items from Banggood on eBay and make themselves a bit of profit for doing nothing. So it's always good to check out the source, and I've got the link for this in the description below. Alright, so this GPS tracker comes in a box like this, and I've already opened it to cover up the serial number and IEMEI number, but this is the tracker. It's pretty basic looking, doesn't really have any display or anything like that. It's got a slot for the SIM card to go in and some wires. It's got a wire harness, it's got the SIM card cover and another external cover to go on the top of that to make it all waterproof, and as well as a user manual which is in Chinese and English. You use this wiring harness and the red and black wire go to your battery on your bike and it'll turn this thing on. Basically that's as simple as you can make it. Now it's also got extra wires so you can hook it up to your ignition, so that way when your ignition is turned on it'll let this system know that. You can set this up as well so you can actually remotely shut your bike off as well, but for me I'm just going to keep this very simple and just have this hidden somewhere in my bike and powered off the battery using the wire. So in the bag you got this little rubber thing that goes on top of your SIM card when you install it in there, and this obviously goes on the outside, plus there's two screws. Good that they give you a spare screw. I think the system itself, it's pretty slim. It's supposed to be waterproof. In fact, it's got a waterproofing standard in here. It's IP67, which means it's waterproof, and this looks waterproof. You know, once you've screwed it all in, I'm sure it'll be fine, but for a motorcycle definitely need a waterproof one. So the wiring harness just plugs into there, and then you can run your wires from there. That's good that they give you a lot of wire, because it gives you the option to hide this somewhere pretty convenient in your bike. In the instruction booklet, it goes through basic things that you need to do for installing the SIM card, screwing it all together, how you should wire it with a nice wiring diagram, and it explains what each of the coloured cables are. So the red is positive, black is negative, orange is the ignition, so this knows when your ignition's switched on, and the yellow goes to a relay. I think the yellow one is if you're hooking up a cutoff for your fuel pump, so you can remotely turn it off. It says in here it's got blinking lights, so the lights are hidden quite discreetly inside where you put the SIM card. Alright, so the wires obviously look like a tangled mess, but that's my fault. I probably could have unraveled that a bit easier. But it's good though, because you can take out any of these wires that you don't want. So I could take out those two there and just leave it with the red and black if I wanted. To wire this is pretty easy. The red goes to your positive terminal on your battery, black goes to your negative, and you could probably put some sort of crimp or connectors on there to hook it up to your battery. You don't have to run your negative back to your negative terminal on the battery. If you just do the positive, you can run your negative to somewhere else on the bike and just earth it to the chassis, which then earths back to the negative terminal on this anyway. This has a rechargeable battery inside it as well, so if they disconnect it from your battery, you can set this up to automatically send you an SMS as well with its GPS location. So that way if someone does disconnect this from your battery, or your bike battery is going flat, this will let you know, so That's always a handy thing to have on there. Alright, so I'm just going to power this up. No SIM card or anything. Let's see what happens. What did we get? Nothing. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, it's got two lights in here. There's a blue and a red. The blue one indicates it's looking for GPS signal, and once it flashes quicker, it means it's found GPS. The red one means it's looking for telephone signal, and once it's found it, it will flash quicker as well. Alright, so it does say don't put your SIM card in and out of this when you've got it powered up. So I'm just going to go and disconnect this. So I've opted to get a SIM card from ALDI because they give you an option to get a 365-day credit SIM card, which means I just have to recharge once a year and don't have to worry about it. Plus ALDI's pretty cheap, and in Australia it uses the Telstra network, so you get coverage everywhere you would get Telstra. This unit uses a full-size SIM card, and with ALDI SIM it comes with a SIM card that's got different cutouts for it, so if you wanted a different size one you could just push the card out and it's all the same card. But this, as is, from ALDI, one size fits all, slides in. So when you put the SIM card in, you push it all the way in so it doesn't cover up those lights. I just realised I didn't push it all the way in. Alright, the next bit you put in is this little rubber flap, and it goes with that little extra lip on there. It goes in like this, and that's good, and that will then screw on. Now you can see your lights through the side here. Okay, done. That's as simple as that. So if you had this hooked in your bike, you could zip tie it somewhere, problem solved, done. You wouldn't have to worry about anything else. Powered off the battery running through the harness. So it's now time to pull out my phone and see if this is actually GPSing and sending messages. So flicking through this manual, it does mention something about needing data, but then it talked about SMSing, so it was a bit confusing. But I've done a little bit of research, and there is a companion app you can get. If you go to your Play Store, if you have Android, and go KEELIN, I'm pretty sure there'll be something on Apple as well, and then you can download that onto your phone. Now on your box it's got a QR code, so that way you can register your device to your logon. So you need to download that, I reckon. So I've just downloaded it. This is what it looks like, and I'm just going to go in and register. Right, I've gone and registered my device now. It's pretty easy to set up, and it gives you an option to scan the QR code, or you can put in the serial number as the key. It's like a security thing, so that way you can log on. You got to put your email in and everything, and it's pretty simple and it's done. Alright, now I'm going to log in. Alright, so it's not bad. It actually pinpointed exactly where my bike is. I'll just zoomed out on the map so that way I don't get random people rocking up on my doorstep wanting to steal my bike to see if my GPS tracker works. But yeah, it seems to be pretty good. In the map settings, you can go in and change it from Baidu Map to Google Map, so essentially from Chinese to English. So in the app itself, you can go through and do all of your alarms. Man, you guys, if you're thinking about getting one of these, so far this is really impressing me. I thought I had to do everything via SMS, and I was a bit upset the SMS codes weren't in here, but now that I can see this companion app works perfectly, it's basically given me a lot of confidence in this. It showed my address exactly where it was on the map. You can rename your device as well, which means you can call it something other than the last digits of the phone number. Alright, the next thing that I can do now is get all those components, pull apart my bike and stuff it all in there. I've got myself some zip ties so I can zip tie it in. I've also got these Velcro picture hook things, so I might just use that and the zip ties, and then some more zip ties on the cable to hold the unit in place, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I've already taken off the side panel on the Honda CTX 700, and I've also got a separate video. If you go through my video and just search how to take the side fuel tank cover off a Honda CTX 700 if you needed to do that. Now looking at the wires and the layout and everything in here, I've got a relay already set up that hooks into here, so when I turn the key on, this accessory port turns on and will activate that relay, which then powers my USB, which goes through a cable here all the way to the front. Now what I'm going to do is hook into the wires from this relay, so one of these wires that would have come out of here, I'm just going to hook into that for my yellow ignition wire, so that way the unit will know when my ignition's on, because power will be going through that and into the yellow wire to tell the computer. And my red and black I can just splice into these wires here. So I was just looking at positions to put this, and I've taken off both of the side panels. And there's pretty much identical on each side, but for ease of getting in and out, I reckon right there would probably be a good option. Although you could stick it in places like in here, maybe even on your air filter or wherever. But if you put it in here, as opposed to putting it underneath this, there's no metal on the outside where this has got metal, so it might interfere with some of the GPS, whereas that might still get some good signal. So after much deliberation, I've decided just to stick it to the side of the tank. The reason for that is I can stick it with this picture hook velcro and it'll go there quite easily without being obstructed by any metal. So with the negative and positive wires, I've just put some heat shrink over them, and then they'll feed through under here, and then with these splices, they'll splice into the negative and positive of the battery there. But you could just earth the negative to somewhere on the chassis if you wanted. And that's ready to clamp down onto those two wires to bridge them together. So as I said before, this wire was for my USB plug, so if you're doing a fresh install, you'd have to mount that directly to your positive terminal. Now I'm just going to wire that into my negative terminal. Alright, so I've completed the install now of the GPS tracker. It's stuck on here with double-sided tape, and I've run the negative and positive, or the black and red wires, to the battery, and the orange wire, not the yellow one, the orange one, to the accessories port. So I've modified it already to hook in my USB relay system through that, but the accessory port originally has a couple of plugs or a couple of wires that go in here, and I've just rerouted them. So these are the original wires that would have been in them. So I've used them for my relay, and that just hooks into my ignition wire. So when I turn the ignition on, this knows it's on. And all the wires are just tucked in under here with the connectors and everything, just to keep it nice and neat. And all those wires just push down the bottom there beneath the battery. Alright, so I've got the GPS tracker in my motorcycle now, and it's all put together and everything is working perfectly. I've trialed it for a few days and it's working flawlessly and it's great. So far I'm really impressed with my GPS tracker, the TK119. It is a brilliant device and works seamlessly with the app. So because I've hooked this up to my ignition wire, the bike knows when the bike is being switched on or off. It doesn't really make much of a difference really, but it just gives you that extra bit of information. With the tracking app itself, if you haven't hooked it up to the ignition, it still knows when to start tracking the bike. It detects movements, it's got a sensor in there, and it just picks up that the bike's moving, whether or not it's been turned on at the ignition or someone's just pushing it. It will still track it because it knows the bike is moving. I went for a trial run with this without actually strapping it to the side of the tank. I just had the unit just loose where the battery is. And on that trial ride, I hit a pothole and yeah, everything was fine. It still kept tracking and everything. It didn't break the unit. But what it did do is the unit sent me a message to my app to say I had been in a motorcycle accident because it had detected such a violent shift of it getting hit. Now just riding normally and hitting potholes and everything, now that it's strapped to the side of the tank in the inside, it doesn't give me any of those alerts. Hopefully it will never do that, and I can remain crash free on the bike. But it's good to see that function does work. I touched on this earlier, but another cool feature this has is when you disconnect the GPS unit from the battery in the bike, it still keeps pinging your location, but it also sends an alert to the application. It's called a push notification, so it pushes the alert out onto your phone to say that the battery has been disconnected. And it also sends another one out saying the battery is low because it's detected that there's no voltage there. So that's cool, that works fine. It's pretty cool with the app. You can actually go on there and you can track your entire route for the last 7 days. So if it actually doesn't get used for a while, it puts it in a standby mode where it doesn't consume as much power, which is good, so it probably won't drain your battery flat. So I've had this in the bike for a week and I haven't had any battery draw issues or anything like that. The app itself is pretty simple to use, and I'll go through some of those features when I get home just to show you what the app looks like and so you can see what it all looks like. Alright, so I'm opening up the app now on my Android phone. It's called Keelan, and I've already logged in before, so it just takes me straight into it. You can see here it identifies where my motorcycle is, and it also has a phone icon which shows where my mobile phone is. You can have a few vehicles with devices set up in them, and you can track them all through the app as well. If you press the button in the top corner, it will show you info of where your bike is currently located. And down the bottom, under Operate, you can go through and change all of your settings. And down here you got notices, so if you have a crash or someone disconnects the GPS from the battery in the bike, it'll show you a notice in here. It'll also give a notification to your phone as well. And if you hit this button on the lower right hand corner, you can bring back your playback history up to 7 days of where you've been riding. So this is where I've been riding here, and it shows at the top the status of the speed and everything like that for the bike, and you can track exactly where it's been.
Alright, so back to me on the road now that I've done the cutaway scene at home. Overall, I think the GPS tracking system is brilliant. I highly recommend getting one, and it gives you that confidence that you know exactly where your motorcycle or car, if you've got it installed in there, is at any given time. It doesn't use much data, so it can be very affordable to run. And this is just me estimating. It probably costing me between $30 to $60 a year worth of data. Yeah, that's a very overestimated estimate. It'll probably be, $30 a year, around that. That's with ALDI SIM on the 3G network here in Australia. The pros of the system is it uses an app. It sends out push notifications, and you can see the GPS track of it over the history of the last 7 days. It has a standby mode and doesn't consume too much power from your battery when you're not operating the motorcycle. On the con side of things, I don't think there's a setting so whenever the ignition has been detected it sends an alert to your phone. That's not a big deal for me, because if I'm worried about my bike I'm going to be trying to work out where it's located. And on this bike it's got the hiss system, so you actually would have to cut wires and do things with the computer to actually get it to start. So you're probably, if you're stealing this bike, more likely just to put it in neutral and push it. Overall, I think it is a great investment for anyone to have on their motorcycle. And even if you've got a cheap motorbike that you're like, oh, I'm not too worried if someone steals it, it will allow you to get your motorcycle back if someone does steal it. They might steal your bike and just use it to scrap it for parts. At least you can get them, and they can get in a lot of trouble with the law, go to jail and whatnot for stealing your bike, because you know exactly where they are. Alright guys, that concludes my unboxing, installation and review of the TK119-3G GPS tracker for motorcycles or cars. Alright guys, as usual, keep safe out there on the road, stay on two wheels and not your head, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Don't get lost. Laters! I just had a thought, if I park my motorcycle at the shops and I forget where I park, I could use this GPS tracker to find it as long as I park outside. Wow, that's cool!